I loaded my whole company into a rented pickup, drove the 762 curves up into Pi, and cut my monthly burn from $4,200 a month down to about $1,900. But the thing that actually changed my business wasn't a single line on that spreadsheet. Before I open any of this up, subscribe and hit like if you want the real numbers and the lived-in truth about moving your business to Thailand, not the brochure version. It's a small thing, and it's what keeps these coming. So picture me, 46-year-old American, sweating already, standing over the open bed of a pickup packed with a whole home office, 2 monitors wrapped in a beach towel, my chair on its side, a router I flat out refuse to leave behind, and then 3 hours of climbing north of Chiang Mai up a mountain road that never once goes straight. Every hairpin has a number painted on the rock, 762 of them by the time you crest the last ridge and the little town opens up below you. I did not drive up there for the view. I drove up for one flat, boring reason, the math. Here's the math. Back in the States, my company was bleeding me at about $4,200 a month just to keep the lights on. Rent on an office I barely sat in, contractors, software I forgot I was paying for, all of it every month before I earned a dime. I ran the numbers on Pi one night at the kitchen table and they said I could cut that clean in half. Not shave it, not trim it, have it. And I trusted those numbers enough to load my whole life into a truck and point it at a mountain. If you've ever sat at your desk at 2 a.m, running your own burn, staring at that total, thinking there has to be a cheaper way to do this, stay with me. Because I ran those exact numbers and I'm gonna open every last one of them up for you. Now, here's what I expected Pi to be. Heat, sweat through your shirt by 9 a.m, a ceiling fan I'd never once turn off, and an air conditioner I'd quietly pray didn't die on me in July. The Thailand every postcard sells you sticky, tropical, a cold drink pressed against the back of your neck. That was the picture in my head the entire drive up. Hold on to that picture. Because at dawn my first week, this town handed me something that picture had no room for at all. Something my spreadsheet never had a line for. But I'll get to that. First, I owe you the arithmetic because the burn is the part I actually planned. The surprise came free by accident, and you'll get it, I promise, but you have to see the receipt first. So let's open it. First line, the easy one, rent. I found a teak house right on the edge of town, a wooden porch looking straight out over green rice terraces, the kind of view people fly across the world just to photograph once. My first night, I set the laptop down on a bare desk in a room still full of boxes, opened the shutters, and just looked at it. 9,000 baht a month. Do the math with me here. Don't just take my word for it. 9,000 baht, that's about $260 for a whole house. My reserved parking spot back home, one concrete rectangle in a downtown garage, cost me more than that every single month. Let that sit for a second. I used to pay more to store a car than I now pay to live, with a mountain view thrown in, and I already know what you're thinking, because it's the exact spot where most people quit. The rent's easy. It's the paperwork underneath the numbers that scares folks off the visa, the bank account, the how is any of this even legal? That's the part that stops most people cold, still standing in their kitchen, still just daydreaming about it. Look, I'm 46. I moved my whole company abroad, and I figured out the visa, the banking, and the burn math the hard way by getting a couple of them wrong first and paying for it. So I wrote every answer down. That's One Way Guide, the practical ebook inside the One Way Club. It answers the actual questions you have when you're staring down a move like this, the real numbers, the real steps in the order you actually need them. Honest limit though, it won't make the move for you, and it's not for anyone who wants a done-for-you concierge to hold their hand the whole way. It's the map for an operator who plans to do his own driving. Scan the code on screen or the links down in the description. Because here's the thing that turns all of this from a fantasy into a real business. It sits on 2 boring pieces of paper. A non-B business visa, the one that lets you legitimately run a company here instead of hopping the border every few weeks like a tourist and a real Thai bank account underneath it in my company's name that clients back home can pay straight into. That's the spine of the whole thing. It's doable. I did it, and I'll walk you through how the pieces fit together. But that visa, honestly, wasn't the line that made me believe The rent was the easy line. $260, a porch, a rice terrace view, done. But the number that actually made me trust this whole move, the one that turned it from a nice idea I talked about at dinner into a decision I'd already made, wasn't the house at all. It was the person I hired to run my books here. Her name is Malie, and what she costs me, all in, held up against the American contractor she replaced, is the single line that decides whether a move like this is real or just something you talk about at parties and never do. So let me hand you that line because it's the one that made me stop treating this whole thing like a bet. Ask yourself, honestly, what a full-time bookkeeper and admin person would run you back in the States before I tell you what she runs me. 50 grand a year? 60? More? If you want someone good who actually picks up on a Friday afternoon. Malie runs my books and my admin. All of it. The invoices, the receipts, the paperwork underneath the non-B business visa, the stuff that used to eat my Sundays whole, $22,000 baht a month. That's about $630. A fraction of the American contractor she replaced, who was billing me more than that in a single week. The day her first invoice hit my inbox, something in my chest just unclenched. That was the biggest swing in the whole budget. One line, it moved the needle harder than rent, harder than anything else on the page, because a bookkeeper isn't a luxury when you run a company. It's the thing that keeps you out of trouble. And here I got the trouble insurance for the price of a nice dinner for two back home. Next line. The desk. I don't work from the teak house because a man who works where he sleeps slowly loses his mind. So I rent a hot desk at Knox coworking place. It's the one with the papaya tree in the courtyard, big broad leaves throwing shade over the tables, couple of cats asleep on the chairs by noon, 2,500 baht a month, quiet, reliable. And a 10-minute walk downhill from my porch, which means my commute is a pair of sandals and the smell of somebody frying garlic 3 doors down. Back in the States, a desk like that in a shared office with decent coffee would have run me $300, $400 a month, easy. Here, it's under 75. Same chair, same Wi-Fi, same job getting done, which brings me to the line I will not ever compromise on. The internet, 600 baht a month, gets me fiber to the house that's solid enough to run a live client call at 9 in the morning without a single stutter, without that frozen face, without me apologizing and switching to my phone. For a remote operator, that number matters more than the rent does. You can sleep on a cheap mattress. You cannot lose a client call because the town you moved to couldn't hold a video feed. Pi holds it. 600 baht, under $20. Now the small stuff, the everyday stuff, the lines that make a whole day cost less than a sandwich did back home. Lunch is a 10 baht bowl of cow soy from the market lady near the corner. That's coconut curry noodles, crispy ones piled on top, and 10 baht is about 30 cents. I ride a red Songthaew up the hill when the heat's on, a shared pickup with 2 benches in the back, and it costs me pocket change. And here's the one that stops Americans cold every single time. Private healthcare I can actually afford to use, not the kind you're scared to touch because of the bill. A visit to a clean, modern clinic, a real doctor who sits with you, runs me under $20 out of pocket. Back home, I was paying $1,100 a month for a plan I was afraid to use because of the deductible. So keep a running total in your head with me here. We're about to hit the number in the title. Rent on the teak house with the rice terraces out front, $260. Meili, $630. The desk under the papaya tree, 70 something. Fiber, under 20. Then the food, the Songthaews, a real health plan I'm not scared of. One indulgence, a good bottle of wine on a Friday, because I'm not a monk, added up the way I read my own bank statement, line by line, no rounding, no hand waving, rent, desk, internet, Malie, food, transport, healthcare. It lands right around $1,900 a month, half on the nose. That's not a rounded up sales figure. That's my actual statement. $4,200 a month was bleeding out of me in the States. $1,900 here, exactly half. And I didn't have to skip a thing to get there. I didn't downgrade my life to hit that number. If anything, I upgraded it, a house with a view I couldn't have dreamed of renting back home, a person handling my books, a clinic I'm not afraid of, stack it against what I left, and the arbitrage isn't a talking point, it's just math. The parking spot back home cost more than this rent. My old health premium alone was more than half my entire monthly burn up here. The contractor who did less than Malie cost me more in a week than she cost me in a month. 4 lines, 4 swings, all pointing the same direction. That's not luck. That's the exchange rate doing what it does when you actually move where the money goes further and set the whole thing up right. So that's it. That's the number. That's the whole receipt. $1,900 a month, a non-B business visa, and a real business bank account underneath it, and a company that runs leaner in a mountain town than it ever did in a city that was quietly draining me. The title made you a promise, and there it is, itemized, adding up, honest. And here's the part I didn't expect to be telling you. The savings, honestly, they were the boring part. I know how that sounds. I just spent 10 minutes cutting my own bills in half in front of you, and now I'm telling you the money was the least interesting thing that happened up here. But it's true, because the burn was the part I planned. I ran that math in a spreadsheet in a cold apartment back in the States before I ever loaded the truck. I knew roughly that this would work. The numbers holding up wasn't a surprise. It was a relief, sure. It wasn't a surprise. The surprise happened before any of these numbers mattered. It had nothing to do with bot or dollars or Meili's invoice. It happened my first week in the dark, a little after 6 in the morning, and it's the actual reason I'm still here. That first week, a little after 6, I woke up cold, genuinely cold, reaching for a blanket. In Thailand, the last thing I'd budgeted for in a country I'd pictured as nothing but sweat and a fan I'd never turn off. And I got up and I stepped out onto the porch and the entire valley was gone. That's the thing no spreadsheet ever put in front of me, and it's the reason my revenue actually climbed up here. Gone. All of it. I stood there on the teak porch in a t-shirt, arms crossed against a cold I'd flown halfway around the world to escape, and below me the whole valley had turned into a flat white sea. Fog, packed so thick and so level, you felt like you could step off the porch and walk out onto it. Somewhere underneath it, a temple bell was ringing slow, muffled, like the sound was coming up through water. The rice terraces, the road, the 762 curves I'd driven up 2 nights before, all of it swallowed, a little after 6 in the morning, and I could see my own breath. In Thailand, if you've ever wondered whether cheaper actually means worse, this is the part I didn't believe either until it happened to me. Because everything I'd pictured about this move was heat, sweat on the back of my neck by 9, a fan I'd never turn off. That's the Thailand every brochure sells you, and it's the one I'd budgeted my whole nervous system around. And here I was pulling a blanket up in the dark, watching temple roofs poke through a cloud that had settled over the town like a lid. Nothing in my spreadsheet had a line for this. Not one. And then I remembered what Nock had told me. Nock, who runs the little co-working place with the papaya tree out in the courtyard. When I'd signed for my hot desk that first afternoon, she'd looked at me over the counter and said, almost offhand, "You'll do your best work before 8, before the fog lifts." I'd nodded the way you nod at a thing you don't understand yet. Standing on that porch, coffee going cold in my hand, I finally got it. She was right. So I did the thing you're not supposed to be able to do in paradise. I went inside, sat down at the kitchen table, and I worked, laptop, glowing in the cold, early dark, mug beside it, the valley still buried outside the window, and for 2 hours, a little after 6 to a little before 8, there was nothing. No air conditioner roaring, no traffic, no inbox lighting up back in the States because everyone there was asleep. And here's the part that got me. No fog in my own head either. Just a clean, sharp, quiet, inside and out. I have been building companies for 20 years. 20 years of coffee and dread and half-formed ideas I could never get to sit still long enough to finish. And I'm telling you, those cold mountain mornings in Pi handed me the clearest head I've had in all of it. 2 focused hours before the world woke up every single day when my mind was as clean as the air coming off those mountains. I got more real thinking done before breakfast than I used to manage in a whole grinding afternoon. Which brings me to the thing I never saw coming. I came up here to cut my burn. That was the whole plan. That was the math. $4,200 a month, bleeding out of me in the States, halved. What I did not plan for, what wasn't anywhere in the arithmetic, is that my revenue actually went up in the cheaper town on the smaller footprint. Read that back. I moved to save money and I made more. That's the part I still can't fully explain, so let me just tell you what happened. It wasn't the cheap rent that did it. Rent doesn't write proposals. The teak house didn't close deals. It was the dawn. It was those 2 clear hours nobody could touch, day after day, stacking up into work I was actually proud of. Sharper pitches, faster turnarounds, ideas I finished instead of abandoned. The cut burn was the thing I planned for. The sharper mind was the return I never budgeted for, and it turned out to be the one that paid. Now, I don't want you floating off on the fog here, so let me put your feet back on the ground, because none of this floats without the boring stuff underneath it. All of this sits on top of a non-B business visa and a real Thai bank account with my company's name on it. And I won't pretend either one dropped into my lap. The visa took paperwork and patience, the right documents, an accountant lined up before I ever invoiced a soul, a few weeks of it feeling slower than you'd like. The bank account took showing up in person twice, but it is a known road. People walk it every month. Prepared, it's a process. Unprepared, it's a headache. That's the whole difference, and that difference is entirely in your hands. It is doable. It is not terrifying. It's a checklist. And let me be honest with you about who this isn't for, because I'd rather lose you here than lie to you. If what you want out of Thailand is year-round beach heat and a nightlife strip that never closes, Pai is not your move. Some mornings up here, you want a jacket, there's no ocean, the town goes quiet early. If that sounds like a downgrade to you, book Krabi, book a beach, and be happy. I mean that. But if you're an operator who wants to think who does his best work in silence, who's been chasing one clear hour for years, then the cold mornings aren't the catch, they're the entire point. The thing that makes Pai wrong for the party is exactly the thing that makes it right for the work. So let's put the two halves of this back together, because you came for numbers and I owe you the number. Half the burn, about $1,900 a month, all in the teak house with the rice terrace view, the hot desk under the papaya tree, fiber solid enough for a client call, Mali running my books, the 10 baht bowls of cow soy, the healthcare I can actually afford. $1,900 a month sitting on a non-B business visa and a bank account that clears. That part is real, it's checkable, and it is within reach of anyone reading their own bank statement, honestly, tonight. So run your own number tonight, your burn halved, and then picture the morning you'd get back. That's the real math, not just what leaves your account, what comes back into your day. Because the receipt was the part I planned, and the receipt held right on the nose, but the fog, the bells coming up through the white, the 2 hours of clean quiet before the valley wakes, the town threw that in for free, and it's the line no spreadsheet will ever write for you. Half the burn, about $1,900 a month, a visa and a bank account, you can actually stand up with a little preparation and a good accountant, and a morning you genuinely want to work in, cold, clear, yours. That part is within reach. The fog is the bonus nobody tells you about up front. Run the number, then go get the morning.